We live in an age of excess, a time when accumulation has become a religion, when having has overcome being with a silent and almost invisible violence. It is an era in which every purchased object is another brick in the prison that encloses us. Each new acquisition is celebrated as a victory, when in reality it is a golden handcuff tightened around our wrists. Excess information, overwork, overconsumption, over-distractions, all of these are sold to us as paths to freedom. But deep down, they tie us to a heavy, confusing, and noisy life, suffocating the essence of what it means to be alive. We chase more money, more status, more technology, more recognition, more speed, more entertainment, more of everything. And at the end of the day, exhausted and anxious, we realize we are carrying tons of useless things, physical and emotional, that only serve to distance us from the essential. We become slaves to rush, comparison, and never-ending consumption. We live surrounded by screens, notifications, and commitments that promise us meaning, but deliver only emptiness. Excess is the sweetest poison humanity has ever created. Seductive, addictive, and disguised as progress. And that's why it's so dangerous. It intoxicates us with the illusion of progress, when in reality it leads us to an inner regression. Excess is never satisfied, it always demands more. A lavish table never satiates, a full cupboard never suffices, a large house is never enough, and even bulging pockets always seem empty. It's like an emotional black hole that swallows everything we put inside, and yet demands more. What should bring comfort becomes a burden. What should mean achievement becomes debt. What should be freedom becomes prison. Life becomes a race with no finish line, a game in which no matter how much you accumulate, you'll always be losing. And perhaps the cruelest thing of all is that this system was built to convince us that it's not. There is another way out. From an early age, we learn to measure our worth by what we have, not by who we are. We are trained to always desire the next step, the next object, the next promotion, the next validation, without ever stopping to ask, what for? Excess robs us of the ability to be present. It puts us on a treadmill that spins faster and faster, while we believe we are moving forward, when in reality, we are only tiring ourselves out until we collapse. Deep down, we know that none of this completes us. We know that happiness isn't found in a pile of objects, in expensive clothes, in a new car, or in the latest technology. We intuit that what truly matters cannot be bought. Time, silence, health, peace of mind, real human connections. But to admit this would be to overturn the entire logic of modern society. And so we keep running, even knowing that the race is illusory, that the prize doesn't exist. The truth is simple. Excess weakens us. It makes us more dependent, more anxious, more empty. It separates us from ourselves, from others, and from nature. And until if we have the courage to see this, we will live like voluntary prisoners in a cell built by our own hands, with bricks of consumption and the cement of illusions. And then simplicity emerges as a revelation. Simplicity not as deprivation, but as liberation. Not as absence, but as presence. Simplicity is what remains when the superfluous dissolves, when the noise falls silent, and only what is essential, true, and authentic remains. Simplicity is not poverty, but wisdom. It is not scarcity, but abundance of what truly matters. It is like a soft flame that illuminates, in contrast to the blinding spotlights of consumption. In a world where ostentation has become the norm and having has become identity, opting for simplicity is more than a personal choice. It is an act of courage, a form of silent resistance against the machinery that turns us into slaves to excess. Simplicity demands detachment, and detachment is painful because we have been trained to believe that our value lies in the things we accumulate. From an early age, we learn that more is always better, that status is measured. Because of quantity, dignity is confused with ostentation. Saying no to this logic is a radical gesture. It's having the audacity to swim against the current, to stand up in a crowd shouting for more and respond with enough. It's seeing that each new object can actually be a new chain, each new debt a new shackle, each new rush a step further from one's essence. Living with less isn't about giving up comfort, but choosing a comfort that doesn't weigh you down. It's about preferring a home that welcomes you, not one that suffocates you with useless space. It's about having enough clothes to clothe your body, not to inflate your ego. It's about using technology as a tool, not a crutch to fill a void. It's finding pleasure in silence, in slow walking, in sincere conversation instead of chasing the superficial shine of things that quickly lose their value. It's clarity instead of confusion, essence instead of appearance. Walking more slowly but with firm steps is the true revolution. Because haste is the language of slaves, and we live in a society addicted to rushing. We rush to accumulate, to compete, to show others that we're winning. But life cannot be savored by rushing. Life demands pause, demands contemplation, demands space so we can perceive the beauty hidden in the everyday, the passing wind, the simple flavor of a meal prepared with calm, the profound silence of a morning without artificial noise. When we stop, we discover that wealth lies not in the many but in the few well-lived. Simplicity is the secret that the modern world tries to hide, because it gives us back what excess has stolen: time, silence, health, depth, clarity. It restores our ability to be present, to listen to our inner voice, to perceive what is truly important. The system that governs our lives is sustained by haste, comparison, and constant dissatisfaction. If everyone discovered the power of simple living, unnecessary consumption would collapse. Therefore, simplicity is not just a personal choice, but a threat to the logic of a world that profits from human emptiness. By choosing to live with less, you lose nothing. You regain everything. You regain nights of sleep that were once devoured by anxiety. You regain moments with loved ones that were once sacrificed by a busy schedule. You regain the pleasure of being at peace with yourself. You regain the dignity of not depending on the gaze of others to feel whole. Living with less is rediscovering life in its purest form. It is discovering that true abundance lies not in what is accumulated, but in what is lived. This is what Henry David Thoreau understood when he abandoned the noisy cities of his time and isolated himself in a cabin in the middle of the woods on the shores of Walden Pond. He didn't flee out of cowardice, but out of courage. He didn't seek isolation as an escape, but as a reunion. There, among trees and still waters, he decided to live only with the essential facts of life. No luxury, no excess, no distractions, just nature, silence, and his own conscience. And it was there in this deprivation that he found true abundance. Not an abundance of things, but an abundance of spirit. He discovered that man doesn't need much to live, just enough to maintain his dignity. The rest is dead weight, an invisible chain, an illusion carefully manufactured by a society that turns us into consumers before even allowing us to be human. But the question we must ask today, centuries after Thoreau, is, have we learned anything? Or have we buried ourselves even deeper in the mire of excess? If excess once meant having more land or more possessions, today it's displayed in increasingly expensive smartphones, designer clothes, luxury cars, houses crammed with objects we almost never use, but which we buy to prove to others that we're winning. Winning what? Life has become a competition of appearances, a race for a status that doesn't exist, a parade of masks that hide the existential emptiness of a generation that has forgotten how to live. We don't own the things we accumulate. We are prisoners of them. Each new purchase demands more work, more time, more energy, more sacrifice. We work like slaves to buy what was sold to us as a symbol of freedom. It's the greatest trick ever played on humanity, transforming voluntary slavery into a consumer dream. Simplifying, therefore, is an act of rebellion. It's standing up against a system that wants us in debt, busy, tired, and distracted. It's refusing the role of consumer and reclaiming the role of human being. When you choose to live with less, you're saying to the world, I don't play your game. You're breaking the logic of the market that profits from your constant dissatisfaction. You're rehearsing your own voice, the one that has been drowned out by the noise of advertising, marketing, and constant comparison with others. That's why simplicity is so powerful, because it restores our sovereignty over our own lives. And the benefits are immeasurable. When you simplify, you find room to breathe. You discover that deep conversations are more valuable than expensive objects, that the silence of a morning in nature is worth more than any bright screen, that free time is true wealth. You discover that cooking leisurely is more satisfying than ordering fast food, that walking is more liberating than being trapped in a luxury car, that reading a good book is more nourishing than consuming hours of superficial content. You discover that you don't need much to live well. You just need to live consciously. The simple life isn't poor, it's rich in everything money can't buy. Therefore, living with less is a call to action, not just nice advice, but an urgent necessity. Modern civilization is sinking under the weight of its own excess. Excess trash, excess debt, excess anxiety, excess haste, excess noise. We're slowly killing ourselves in the name of a false abundance. But there's still time to turn things around. There's still time to choose lightness, to simplify, to free yourself. Start small. Get rid of what you don't use. Turn off what you don't need. Reject what only serves to inflate your ego. Swap haste for calm, hoarding for sharing, noise for silence. This is the secret to a light life. It's not about poverty, but about wisdom. It's not about renunciation, but about victory. The simple life is the true life, and choosing this path is an act of courage that few dare to take. Not because it's difficult in itself, but because it requires facing the ridicule, judgment, and incomprehension of a society addicted to excess. Most prefer the weight of appearances to the lightness of authenticity. They prefer the gilded prison of consumption to the freedom that frightens, precisely because it's rare. But those who choose simplicity, those who dare to swim against the current of the world, discover something that excess can never offer: the lightness of living at peace with themselves, with others, and with the world. Simplicity is not a passing fad, not an alternative lifestyle for those who have failed to accumulate wealth. It is a silent revolution, a return to the essence of life, a reminder that happiness cannot be bought, it is lived. In a time when haste is glorified and ostentation is applauded, stopping to contemplate the sunset is an almost subversive act. Sitting in silence to listen to one's own thoughts is a radical gesture. Refusing to join the race for more is a true rebellion against the tyranny of excess. Living with less is much more than reorganizing the house or donating clothes you no longer wear. It's an exercise in awareness. It's realizing that each accumulated object requires energy to be cared for, space to be stored, time in our lives, and that every minute spent on what doesn't matter is a minute stolen from what truly matters. The simple life isn't about having little, but about having enough. And enough is always more than we think. It's knowing that we don't need excess to be complete, because completeness lies in being, not in having. The world teaches us to believe we are free, but the freedom they sell us is just another form of slavery. True freedom isn't about being able to buy everything, but about not needing to buy anything. It isn't about collecting possessions, but about not being possessed by them. It isn't about chasing fabricated dreams, but about living reality with serenity. Simplicity is a cry for freedom in a world that has forgotten what it means to be free, because it gives us back control of our own lives. Those who dare to choose this path discover benefits that no amount of advertising can sell. They discover that silence is more valuable than any fast-paced music. They discover that time with those they love is more precious than any luxury. They discover that peace of mind, the kind that arises when one owes nothing to the world and has nothing to prove to anyone, is the true hidden treasure. The simple life offers us something that no display window can display: lightness. The lightness of sleeping peacefully, of waking up without rushing, of walking without haste, of talking without masks, of existing without weight. And perhaps that's precisely why so few choose this path, because it requires courage, the courage to say no to what everyone else says yes to, the courage to be seen as different, the courage to forego easy applause and seek something deeper, the integrity of living according to one's own values. It takes strength to fight a system that wants us to be always dissatisfied, always rushing, always consuming. But this strength exists, and it awakens in each of us who decides to simplify. Living with less isn't losing anything. It's recovering everything, recovering time, health, mind, heart, recovering connection with nature, with people, with ourselves. The simple life is the true life because it gives us back what excess has stolen. the freedom to be.